Welcome back. Thanks so much for staying with us here on Daytime Update. More on those headline stories for you throughout the day, but let's bring you this discussion now. The Constitutional Court has dismissed Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi's bid for leave to appeal a ruling on the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit. He'd sought to challenge a High Court ruling which invalidated his decision to terminate the permits and prevents government now from detaining or deporting any holder of the permit. Let's unpack the story further. Jason Whyte is a director at Norton Rose Fulbright. Jason, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on to the program. And of course, this is an important ruling for holders of this permit. It gives them some sense that there might now be a real discussion insofar as permanency of their permits and permanency of their situation in South Africa to be considered by Home Affairs.
Yes, thanks for having on the show, Michelle. I think it's quite important to point out at the outset that the Constitutional Court's decision doesn't mean that holders of the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit, the ZEP, are now permanent or have permanent residency in South Africa. What it means is that the minister has to go back to the drawing board, conduct what we often refer to as a notice and comment process, and then to make a new decision which complies with the minister's obligations in law and under the Constitution.
And of course, Norton Rose Fulbright represented the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa, or perhaps just to shorten it to CORMSA. But essentially what it also means, Jason, is that there should be a proper consultation process, which I understand did not take place, and the court said as much.
That's correct. There had been very little consultation at all. Now, the two main groups of people that would be interested in the outcome, well, of course, we've got the permit holders themselves who have started businesses and families and have children at school and would have a say in the outcome of the minister's decision. But then there's also the various parts of civil society like CORMSA, who represent a broader interest group. CORMSA represents migrants and refugees and asylum seekers, and they have an important voice in any decision that is made by the minister. Now, they simply haven't been able to express their views and to influence the decision that the minister takes at the end of the day.
So would you say then that both of these things are true? Number one, it does create this space now or this opportunity to persuade Home Affairs that some form of permanency should be considered. But on the other hand, it doesn't necessarily mean that the permit is immune from being cancelled.
Absolutely correct. The minister could obviously take the same decision again, provided that he, or if he stays in his post following the cabinet reshuffle, he could come up with a completely different decision. The point is that he has to be open to persuasion. He has to hear the comments and the submissions that the various parties wish to make. And if he is persuaded that some form of permanency needs to be implemented, and permanency can obviously take various forms, there could be specific conditions that are imposed, well, then he must come up with that decision. And I think what CORMSA would like to persuade the minister to do would have some form of permanency, particularly where we are dealing with people who have been in South Africa for up to 15 years now, have, like I said, businesses, they have homes, they employ other employees, particularly South Africans, they have children at school and so on. So those are the type of things that the minister needs to take into account now.
And these are the kinds of arguments I imagine that Norton Rose Fulbright would be making, continuing to represent CORMSA?
Certainly, we would be assisting CORMSA with making those submissions. Obviously, it's very early in the day. We haven't had any feedback from the minister's side. I suspect that what the next step will be, given that there's no further appeal that the minister could follow, would be that the minister promulgates in a notice or in the Government Gazette an invitation to the public to come forward and make submissions. And then CORMSA and other interest groups like Helen Suzman Foundation will then need to meet with their legal teams and compile those submissions to put forward.
Right. It's also very interesting, Jason, that we're having this discussion today on World Refugee Day.
Correct, yeah. So obviously the problem facing Zimbabwe at the time had very important implications for refugees and migrants who are displaced from their countries of origin. So I think it is quite important that this highlights the plight of asylum seekers and refugees, and particularly in current South African society where we need to be more welcoming.
Jason Whyte, let me thank you for your time this afternoon, Director at Norton Rose Fulbright. And of course, that organisation represented the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa successfully, at the end of the day, challenging the Home Affairs Minister's decision to terminate the permit regime in 2023. Jason, thanks very much indeed for your time this afternoon.